we go. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Trainer Profiles here. We have a pretty exciting episode this week. We are this week with Alex from Nomics. And I know some of you guys have probably seen him on his channel, but Alex, why don't you go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you or what the name of your channel is, and let us know a little bit about yourself before we get started, though.
Yeah, Nomics on YouTube. I have an Instagram too, if you wanted to reach out and had like some questions or anything, but I don't post as much as I should on there, so I'm not super active. What do you want me to get into?
Yeah, so welcome to the channel here, Alex. Today on this interview, what we like to do here is kind of talk to people about the behind the scenes for some of their favorite trainers or content creators or just collectors out there. And so I know that a lot of the time we talk the market, a lot of the time that's what my channel likes to talk about, your channel likes to talk about. I'm sure because you and I just can't help it, we are going to be getting into the market a little bit. But mostly what we're going to be doing in this is talking a little bit about you and your collection. But I do have to ask something, a very important question that my community, and I know a lot of the community, is dying to know before we get into any of the weeds. But are you ready for an important one?
I am.
How dare you like modern and tell people that they should like modern? And how dare you use the I word, the investment word, on these Pokemon investment channels? Is your channel named Nomics? Is that a play on economics? How dare you?
Yeah. How dare I indeed? I do. I mean, it's funny enough because when I got back in the hobby in 2015, I literally got back in as a straight collector. So, I mean, I talk about it before. I got in spending money, right? Within no hopes of getting it back, no investment ideas. I was buying like old game systems I had from when I was a kid, and I came across the N64 and I was playing, Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Stadium. And so it got me thinking, hey, I wonder if those cards are still out there. And so, I eBayed that just like I've been doing for the video games. And I started to find the old cards. So I bought the base set, Jungle and Fossil. And of course, back then, no one really knew what they were doing. So you'd get the sets in and they had first editions and Shadowless and things mixed in, and no one cared. They were just sending it out. And I had no idea what conditions I was buying. But I was just buying stuff I liked as a kid, and they were cheap. And, it got me, really back into it. I searched around my local area and found a local card shop that was still around, and went in there and checked it out and what they had. And they actually had old stuff. So I bought a few base set packs and jungle packs and fossil packs that they still had in a display case. And it just kind of started from there. And so I like to say, like, the first year I was back in the hobby, like 2015 to 2016, was literally, I was just collecting things I remembered as a kid, just cards, sealed items, like theme decks, just all that type of stuff. I was just kind of getting back in and enjoying the hobby again. And I really didn't start using that I word until 2016. And what happened in 2016, it was just kind of a coincidence. I really hadn't been buying in the last few months. And I had a friend come over and check out my new house that I had a house built. And he was checking out my house, and I said, hey, you got to come in here. So I took him in my closet and pulled out the bin where I was storing everything. And I showed him, and his eyes lit up. And so we got it all out, put it all out on the bed, and we started going through it and everything. And it was a lot of fun. And then, I get a call from him the very next day. And he's like, hey, so I'm on eBay. I'm looking for this stuff. You said these packs were like $25, $30, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, they're like 50 or 60 now. I'm like, you don't know what you're doing, man. You don't know how to search eBay. So I get on. I'm like, here, I'll show you how to do it. I'm searching, and I'm going to sold listings, and sure enough, literally almost everything I had bought was 50 to 100% up within like less than a year. And we immediately just both clicked. I've always run my own business. He had an investment mindset. We already talked a lot about, the stock market and our investments, and stuff like that. So we immediately just both clicked, like, hey, a lot of people must be wanting to get into their childhood. A lot of people must be buying up their things they couldn't afford when they were kids and enjoying this again. We started seeing the more of the YouTube channels that were popping up. I'm like, started to see the product back on the shelves at Walmart more. I'm like, you know what? I think it's happening again. I think the popularity's coming. I think we might see another craze. And that's when we just both started. We started buying for investment purposes, and it no longer became just spending the money on collectibles. So that's kind of how I got back in.
Was that before? Was that right before Pokemon Go? Is it so from the time frame or?
Right Pokemon Go Evolutions time. That was when I really started going heavy. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense from what it was saying. It sounds like it was right around the time. So because Pokemon Go got me back into Pokemon as well, it didn't drag me back into the card game quite yet. Like I think I got a couple of packs as I was out and about, but like, but it was really for me. It was the Hidden Fates. But okay, cool. So you got back into it more in 2016. So that's cool then. So a lot of what you probably experienced was through that evolutions time. So you were in it during the slow time too then. So from 2016, it boomed a little bit, I had heard, because I wasn't around at that time to really be involved with the hobby. But I heard it did have a small little boom, but then it kind of crashed, right? Is that sort of the understanding that I...
Yeah, I think after the Pokemon Go and Evolutions kind of calmed down a little bit, it did kind of have a downturn. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't nothing like we see today. Like my first trip to a card store, I remember like having XY base, Phantom Forces, Flashfire, Furious Fist. Like they had every set on the shelves. Like they had full boxes, they had loose packs, and you could buy any product you wanted. Nothing was selling out, and it was everything was pretty attainable. But again, I knew nothing about modern. I was literally just buying vintage. I was buying everything I knew as a kid. I was watching YouTube channels like SM Pratt and stuff. I was learning more. That was around that time I found E4. And so I was really like, asking questions, learning as much as I could, and doing tons of studying, learning what Shadowless was, and learning about all the different print runs and all the mistakes that WotC made, and the little errors. So that's the time I did I gained the most of my knowledge, I would say. It was in that time. But, it wasn't until I guess during that kind of downturn you talked about was when we really started to, me and a friend of mine, we really started to move into modern investing. And we had that mindset, it may have been a wrong mindset to have that worked out, but it may have been wrong, is that, hey, all the people coming back in the hobby now, there's probably a lot of us, there's probably a lot of kids, a lot of new collectors, and they're probably going to want all these sets that, we are going back and collecting. They're going to want this when they're older. And so that was our basic, our framework, but obviously this is all luck. There's no way you could have seen this happening. We were thinking, hey, we spend an extra, $500, $1,000 a month, then maybe in, 10 years, we can have a pretty good gain here. We weren't thinking this is going to be a year or 2 year time frame. And so I do want to throw it out there, because I know a lot of people think that, I'm just like trying to hype things or, be in and out of stuff fast as possible. I mean, when I came into this, I had a long-term, mindset in my mind, and it just turned out, so quick. And so it was all luck, really.
Yeah, let's be real. I think that everyone in this hobby, nobody could have really predicted what was going to happen. If anyone really predicted with it, they wouldn't be in their situation. They would be in a mansion somewhere in the Bahamas. They'd have capitalized on that because they had a crystal ball to really know, right? I think it was really a very, very black swan event. It was a once in a millennial sort of thing, but very much so. Something that I think is something that you touched on, though, that I want to go back to, that I think is important, that does touch on something that's special about Pokemon, though. Isn't it interesting how people's eyes light up that first time that they get back into the hobby? Because just going back to what you said about when your friend came over and you kind of hey man, I want to show you something. You brought him to the closet and show him. I've had that moment, with friends of mine, when I finally reveal, now I'm much more publicly about my collection because it's a business for me. I make my living off of it. I have a YouTube channel. I'm a personality of sorts. So yeah, everyone knows I like Pokemon cards, but that childlike exuberance that comes out from people when you kind of show that and share it with them, it's really special about Pokemon. And I think it has something to do with the nature of how the cards sort of move in the marketplace too. It's it's very much so tied to our sentiment towards it and our feelings and how we as a society feel for it. So I think that was a very interesting thing to touch on, and I think it's really cool. So that's special about this hobby, I think, and that's something that sometimes I forget about, maybe because it's so everyday for me. But that is such a special moment. That moment that you pull your cards out from your closet and you find your old cards. I hope that more people continue to experience that. And I don't think that we're done with that. I think that even with all this big hype, I think there's still more to be said for the Pokemon hobby. And that being said, I have a business that runs in it, so I do feel that way. I'm invested in it in that way. So that being said, I want to kind of lead into the next question that we like to have here, since we know a little bit more about your entry point, your sort of genesis in the hobby, which is very important, I think, for any trainer to kind of hear about not only what got them back into the hobby, but maybe even what got you into the hobby. So I have a question for you. Were you a red or were you a blue trainer back in? Or
So yeah,
did you not play in the old days? I that's something that's a possibility too. But
no, so I was red and yellow.
okay.
So red and yellow, I played them interchangeably. I didn't have blue when I was growing up, so it was red and yellow. But as funny enough, I was Squirtle. So
good.
I used so Blastoise was my guy, and but I did play red version, so it was pretty weird.
Yeah, I was blue. And I was a Squirtle as well. So yeah, so we would have been able to trade and get some Pokemon or whatever. I never had yellow though. So everyone talks about how yellow is like the best one because the Pikachu would follow you. I was never able to get it though. So like I never experienced, and I know it's a totally different game. Maybe that's one I'll have to go back and experience someday because I heard yellow was really good. So that's something for sure. Okay, that's an important question though. We have to get that one out of the way. Red or blue? Because every trainer, they have to make that very important. It's almost more important than like what your starter is going to be, because we all go and get all the starters, but you can't always get both games because you have the monetary, so
yeah. And actually, I mean, it held true. I played all the way up through Ruby Sapphire, and then I also even played Fire Red Leaf Green. But I stayed water type the entire way. So I got Totodile, I got Mudkip. I stayed with the water Pokemon the whole way through. So always been a water guy on the starters.
that's very dedicated. So I myself choose a particular type. I would choose individually each one. So I know a lot of people I hear like I'm all grass type, or they're like I'm all fire type, or I'm all water, but I would always try to go for. So I guess that brings me, this isn't usually on the list, but what's your starter from the new games? Have you seen the new from Scarlet, Violet? What is it? Violet Ruby, or what's the two?
I don't even know. I haven't even looked into them, so I couldn't even tell you what the starters are in those yet.
So there is the one Quaxley that everyone talks about.
Okay.
You've probably seen the duck with the hat on him.
Okay.
Okay, so that's Quaxley.
He's a starter. Okay.
Apparently, he's like the guy. Like that's what everyone's main dude is. So like, okay, the dude, the duck with the hat. That's it. But then there's also this weird shy guy looking, like little Tyranitar looking fire dude. And he kind of looks cool to me. I think I could see that being kind of a cool looking dinosaur or something. And then there's like a grass kitten thing, and so there's like a grass cat. So those are the three starters. But yeah, but I think it'll be an interesting game, and I'm definitely excited about it.
I'm open to all starters. Like, I mean, even going back now, I probably wouldn't have even chosen like Mudkip. Like, I still love Totodile, so I would have chosen him, but I probably would have went with Torchic to get the Blaziken in the Gen 3, though. I think I like Blaziken a little better than the Swampert or whatever it was.
I find a lot of people really criticizing the new Pokemon or some of the new designs, which I find is completely okay. Like, if you don't like them, you don't like them. That's fine. But I do feel like there are some really good ones that have come out. Like, one of my favorite Pokemon that have come from the new generations is Mimikyu. Like, Mimikyu that was from the Sun and Moon. And I love that freaking Pokemon. So, like, that's definitely a good one. And I think there's other examples of that in new ones too. But then there's examples of like, ice cream cone floating. That's my favorite one to hate on, is Alchemy. Can't stand that Pokemon, but to each their own. I'm sure there's Alchemy lovers out there.
And I think there's great, I guess you said there's great Pokemon in every single generation. I mean, obviously the original 51 are always gonna hold a special spot for any of us who grew up with it. But I mean, I think you can find Pokemon to, kind of relate to in every single generation that comes out. I mean, even if you can't learn and know every single one.
And I think that's the beauty of Pokemon, is there's so many of them, and it's like there's something for everyone almost. But yeah, that's kind of interesting though. I definitely am excited about the future of that. Can you even believe that we're almost done with Sword and Shield? What are we on? Sword and Shield, this is gonna be 10. Astral Radiance is SW Sword and Shield 10, right? Yeah, look at that. Yeah, I think it's 10. So that means we have 2 more sets after that. That is wild, before we're on to the next generation. It just feels like Sword and Shield just kind of, I blinked and it's already gone on by, but maybe that was just the nature of the last 2 years. But I guess that kind of leads me into the next thought here, though. A lot of my audience and a lot of people are probably curious about some of your background a little bit more. So I know that you have the YouTube channel here, but is Pokemon something that's full time for you, or is it something that you kind of would like to be full time, or what is your day job if you do have one right now? But curious to hear sort of the behind the scenes, sort of reveal the curtain of some of our favorite content creators here.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love for Pokemon to be my full-time gig. It's not, I think there was a time where, we wanted, my friend of mine wanted it to be full-time, back when during kind of leading into the Logan Paul boom. We had amassed a good solid collection. It had gained a lot of value. So we had a lot of money in Pokemon. We thought about doing the distribution model and open up an online store, and then starting a channel and doing things that kind of all complement each other. And eventually, we both just made up our minds that, hey, we both have a stable life. He had a good job. I run a business. I can tell you about that in a second. But we just came up with that plan that, hey, it's a huge risk. If it didn't work out, we're putting ourselves really behind. If we kind of just stay the course where we're at, we have a good life set up for us and stuff like that. So I never made the jump. What I do for my day job is I own a couple of businesses. I own a lawn care landscaping company, which I've owned since I was in high school. I ran it all the way through college. When I graduated college, I started looking for jobs. I started realizing, hey, these jobs are paying me almost what I'm making doing my lawn care and landscaping, and I only have to work 8 or 9 months a year here in Missouri. And so I found another company that was trying to get out of the business. I bought them out, doubled in size, grew from there. And, I've just grown and run that since. And now I also partnered with a friend of mine last year with a car detailing and ceramic coating company. And so we, ceramic coat, detail cars, all that type of stuff. And so I'm 50-50 owners in that business. And so that's basically what, keeps me busy throughout the day. And then, the YouTube channel, main reason I created the YouTube channel is because after the boom, so kind of give a little bit of my backstory is when the boom happened, I knew how they worked, just from the stock market. I knew how these things worked. I knew it wasn't going to continue forever. I knew there was going to be a drop. And so I sold 95% even of all my entire collection, my entire investment. So I jumped ship. I got out, I sold it all, didn't hit the top by any means. I know, give you an idea of a couple items, like, I sold my base set booster box for $22,500. The top was way up at the, 30s. I sold my, And so I had a lot of WotC sealed. I had a lot of PSA cards because we were, back then we were opening a lot of like first edition, jungle fossil boxes. We were selling the light packs, opening the heavies, grading the hollows, selling off the 9s and 8s, keeping the 10s. And we were kind of rinsing and repeating that method. And that's how we built a lot of our collection. And so I was doing all that. And then into the boom, I sold everything. And I kind of walked away for like a year or so. So I kind of missed the beginning of Sword and Shield because I was just kind of like, this is going to be just, devastation. And I don't want to be, I just don't want to be around it to watch it all. So I tried to stay away from YouTube content. I just didn't want to see it because I knew there was going to be a lot of pain and suffering and a lot of people were going to be really upset. And to my surprise, things dropped, but it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. And so as I kind of, moseyed back into the hobby, I really got back involved again. And I started, really looking to start buying again. But I felt that all the content at this point was either you were a hype man pack opener or you were like a really in-depth content Pokemon investing channel. And I just felt like, well, hey, I don't see a lot of those, kind of combination channels. I don't see any like Pokemon investing channels that were making it, fun and exciting. And there were some more short form content for people that didn't want to watch 30 minutes or hours live streams. And so I thought, hey, I'm going to make a channel for Pokemon investing content that's, quick, straight to the point, that short form content. I'm gonna make it a little more exciting, kind of more that like, Rudy Alpha Investments vibe and less of, the kind of just sit there, talk about spreadsheet or sit there and talk to someone on a live stream for hours on end. And that was kind of the genesis of my channel and the reason behind it.
Nice. And I think you're right. There isn't a ton of that out here anymore in the YouTube sphere. So you said you got out of it for a little while, which would explain why you kind of missed a lot of that. there was a lot of that, I would say, on YouTube running around for a while. Not to say anything by name, but a lot of those channels aren't here anymore too. And so I think that's that is an interesting note. But I didn't necessarily think about that. That there is kind of a I want to say like a gap there. There is a need to be filled by that for sure, because a lot of those channels sort of are out of it, which is interesting. So do you feel as if right now, to sort of go along with that little chat, do you feel like right now is sort of a good time for the market as far as like on the buyer's side? Or would you say it's sort of a time that things would continue to drop, and that if you were looking to buy, you'd be like, ooh, I think I know the answer to what you're going to say, but I'd like for you to answer this, of course, just, you know.
I think it's I think we're in a very selective market. I think in this market, you actually need knowledge of Pokemon, and to understand like print runs, understand sets, understand popularity behind Pokemon in sets and how those make sets perform, to be able to do well, I think, in short-term or long-term investing in this market. I think if you're just jumping in, trying to throw money at random things, buying anything and everything, any set and every set, I think you're gonna have a hard time. I think we've seen that with a lot of the sets that came out, Battle Styles, Fusion Strike, Chilling Reign, things like that. Obviously there were some home run sets like, Evolving Skies, Celebrations, some of those products are moving really well. Yeah, I think, it's going to take a lot more knowledge and to be a lot more selective in this market to where you're placing your money to do well. If we're talking about long-term, I still hold that mindset. I know a lot of people are kind of down in that mindset right now, but I still hold the mindset that, sealed product over time rises in value. I think as the set becomes out of print, as the reprints are over, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, product eventually begins to dry up, because what happens when product is really cheap? It gets bought, it gets opened. It gets opened by regular people, by streamers, by, box openers like yourself, pack crackers. And, the product is taken off the market and put into people's permanent collections as their one-off booster box they need for their collections. And I just think over time that the market, becomes more scarce for the product. And what that does, it draws eyes from, attention from investors or collectors, as the prices start to move up a few dollars at a time, which creates more of a buying frenzy. And that's what causes the prices to rise. So I just think, over time, modern sealed product does well. Any sealed product does well. It always has. And until I see a major shift in the market, I can't come out and say, I don't see that happening in the future. I mean, we can have opinions of why it might not, but until I see any reasons to believe that that's going to happen anytime soon, I can't say it's not going to, just because there's been a few reprints of some modern sets that have dropped the price. That's going to continuously happen. It's happened multiple times. I mean, since I've been in the hobby, I've seen reprints of, Primal Clash and Roaring Skies, which dropped them down to in the 80s, even 70s, a booster box, which they recovered. I've seen reprints of Shining Legends when Shining Legends was going for 190 in ETB, dropped back down in the 70s. I've seen reprints, obviously Hidden Fates we've seen, a lot of boxes. We've seen reprints on and on and on. We've seen evolutions get printed to oblivion. So, I mean, there's just nothing that's never not come back or risen in value. And so I get there's more prints than ever. I get there's more product than ever. The problem is there's more people in the hobby now than ever to eat up that product. Another thing I like to say is back in the day when me and you got in the hobby, the average opening, we got to open 2 or 3 packs at a time, right? Maybe Christmas, you got some more, but it was 2 or 3 packs. Now the average is like an ETB or a booster box. You're opening like 8, 10 packs or 36 packs at a time, meaning, we're opening 5 times or 20 times more packs on average than we were before. So obviously you would need 20 times the product to keep up with the demand. So those are all the reasons why I still feel the market's strong. Obviously no guarantees, no time frame guarantees, but I think if you're in for the long haul, a lot of people are going to be pretty happy with what they're getting into.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you on that. I do think it's interesting that, as with all things, there's a little bit of controversy whenever you sort of give your opinion publicly, right? And so I do feel like, for whatever reason, your channel, I think you've had magnificent growth in the last, I don't know, when did you start your YouTube channel?
Literally, I think it was just over 3 months ago now.
Yeah, so you've got to be almost to 2,000 followers at this point, right? Last time I think I looked, you're close to that at this, but your growth,
not quite. I think we're at like the 1700s.
That's really good, man. And so your growth has been really, really like strong. And I think that there's a little bit, for some reason, there's always controversy surrounding whenever you put your opinion out there, right? And for some reason, specifically in Pokemon and in Pokemon investing, there's this huge amount of controversy that's like around it. But for some reason it wasn't there like a year ago, really, when there were a ton more. It's only sort of really there now, it feels like, or maybe it was there before. But I'd kind of like to explore this topic a little bit more with you if you're comfortable with it, just because I do think it's something that, I mean, I don't experience at all, really, not nearly as much as like a really small channel. But as a pack breaker, I experience a little bit of it from a different side. I know you experience it a little bit as a YouTuber, but I would be curious to hear your thoughts on that. Like, do you think it's sort of warranted, or do you think it's unwarranted, or maybe do you think that it's just sort of other things wrapped into it? Or just what are your thoughts, I guess? Because I guess I think I know how I feel, but I'd love to hear how you feel about it, because I think you've been at the helm of recently. You've sort of been a little bit of a target for some of the Pokemon, at least the Pokemon investment sphere. And I mean, you make investment type, Pokemon investment type content, so it's probably a good thing in some regard. But I'd love to hear your opinion about it, though, just because I think it's important to hear those types of things if you're comfortable with that.
I mean, how long do we got?
yeah, by all means. My channel is usually 2-3 hours, so
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to do this as respectfully as possible, because I don't know why, I guess I understand why. I understand like why my content can be controversial, but I don't understand why I've become like the center of being attacked by so many people just because of my opinions. But I think this comes back to one thing. It comes back to flexibility. So I think, like, especially with what we talked about before the stream with your, business, and how you've changed it a little over the time, and you've become made flexible, moved off Instagram and Facebook, and now you're on Whatnot, and you're staying fluid, right? You're moving with the market and the market trends. And I think that's what a lot of people right now are, either they're wanting to ignore, or they, just don't want to do it in general. They're closed-minded to it. And, I think that's the biggest misconception with me, is because I'm a brand new channel, I have this misconception that I just got back in the hobby and I'm just trying to come and pump things. And, I'm a hype guy and all this stuff. When in reality, I've been in the hobby, longer than some, and it just as long as others. And I've seen a lot of things come and go in the market. I came in being, I don't know, 90% of my investment in collection was vintage. It was all vintage, sealed vintage slabs. So I've been on that side of things. It's not that, I hate or am, I have nothing against vintage in general. I still have vintage in my collection. I don't have slabs. I have binders because, I don't want to, have a lot of value in those things because of how I feel. And, but, I have nothing against vintage. I love vintage. It's what I grew up with. I just want to get that out of the way. But coming back in the market, seeing how the market's developing, seeing how kind of the landscape has changed, I've noticed that with any market, okay, it's ran by the masses. It's not ran by the people at the top, or what the people with the biggest collections or largest, whatever it may be, largest net worth in Pokemon want it to be. Okay, it's ran by what the masses want. Okay, it's ran by what Pokemon pushes and what people want to buy. And so I noticed a huge shift of people wanting modern. So the people coming in the hobby now, they're not doing what I did. They're not discovering Pokemon and saying, okay, I need to go back and buy everything from my childhood. They're staying on modern. They're coming back in, they're buying modern, they're staying on modern, they're cracking packs, they're buying the PSA cards, they're grading the cards, they enjoy it. And so I've seen this shift, and I've kind of catered how I invest now towards that, where I think the reason I get a lot of backlash is because a lot of people in the Pokemon investment phase, especially, they truly, I'm not saying they're shilling themselves or anything like that. They truly, in their hearts, I believe in vintage. They think that the rarity is going to carry it through. They think the low population of the cards is going to carry it through. And they think eventually people are going to want the originals, and they're going to want to move back from modern into that. And so I just don't share those opinions at this point. And we just have a difference of opinion. It's not that I don't know how they feel on me. It's not like I dislike or hate any of them. It's just we have a different of opinions. And I think when I say those opinions, it just hits people the wrong way, and they don't know how to take it. And I've also made some controversial comments, maybe I shouldn't have made. One of them, I'll say it right now. One of the comments I made was, I think a lot of these old school investors who have large positions in vintage or vintage slabs, it's in their best interest to keep those vintage cards and vintage, values up. So, because they're protecting their own investment, right? They're protecting all the money they have wrapped up in those cards. So it's in their best interest to talk well of vintage and then put down modern, because they want the money to come back into vintage. And, like I said, it just comes back to opinions. You can think people are going to want to move back to vintage. You can think that because the populations are lower and they're more scarce and harder to get. The problem is you could have the rarest one of one item in the world, but if no one wants it, it's worth zero. It's with everything in our society, our money in general, gold, cryptocurrency. If no one wants it or believes in it, it's not worth anything. And so what vintage has to compete with in the future, it's not really modern in general. It's just the mindset of the current masses. If the mindset of enough people is going to value those cards as high as they are and be willing to pay those prices. And, it's higher entry points. The more and more younger people get in the hobby, it's harder to transfer them back to vintage because they have absolutely no, connection to it. And so that's all I'm doing. I'm just catering my investing style to what I see in my opinions of the market. They're doing theirs. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And so if that makes me controversial and get attacked, so be it.
Yeah, I don't think and I don't think you're doing anything that's bad either. To be fair, I think it's perfectly okay for people to state their opinion. And I think I've seen several of your videos where you explicitly say this is not financial advice. And then, so I think it's perfectly okay. It's just fun. I think it's just funny, and it's a good dialogue to have. In the Pokemon sphere, people get so they get so worked up about it, they get real worked up. And I mean, we've been in these lives before. I mean, we've been in a lot of the community. We know each other, so that's also what's sort of funny about that, is that we all kind of know each other in this sort of a community of sorts. So I'm thank you for talking about that, though, because it is important, I think, to kind of just get it out there, because I think that even I've been critical of some of your titles of videos and things. And I think that is completely up to the creator what they want to do. And I will say that there is you make really good thumbnails. I'm very impressed by your thumbnails. So I want to say, thank you for doing a really good job with that, because you do a great job with your branding and all of your your editing and stuff, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, let me speak to that too. I mean, because I know I've been criticized for that as well. I mean, one, I'm brand new. Two, just to get discovered or, start to gain a presence on YouTube, it takes some of that stuff. So I think if everyone met me in real life, I mean, I'm just a super chill, laid back person. I mean, talk to you for hours about anything. I mean, I'm not like this, super numbers driven, only care about investment, don't care about the cards. I don't even have a care for Pokemon. It's just the money. I'm not that person. It's just that, I made a channel, for Pokemon investing. That's the content I'm providing. That's the audience I'm going after. So yeah, I'm going to have Pokemon investing in my titles. I'm going to have thumbnails that are built towards, that demographic. When there's controversies out there, obviously those things are good for views. So I'm going to add those things in, titles or videos or thumbnails. So yeah, I do some of those things to get eyes, right? Because, as long as the title's good and the thumbnail is good and they click, they're going to get the actual knowledge from the video. And so, yeah, I could, water down the titles or thumbnails a little and not use Pokemon investing or not use certain keywords. But at the end of the day, if no one clicks on it, then, no matter how much knowledge I had or how much it could have helped someone, it'll never get watched. So it's a really fine line there. I get it. But at the same time, I think people saying that, they don't understand how YouTube works either, right?
No, bro, you need to keep doing it because it's fantastic. Your thumbnails are great. Even it'll get me to click on it sometimes when I'm not even intending. I'll be like, whoa. Really? It's good. It's a good one. You're good. So I want to commend you on that, to be honest. And I think I have heard some criticism about YouTubers and thumbnails and clickbait and stuff. And look, I'm a YouTuber, and unlike you're a YouTuber, so we are biased. We are both biased. So the average watcher is going to maybe feel differently about this. They're going to maybe feel like No, if it was me, I would only say the truth. I would be the most boring. I would wear a suit and I would not have anything in there that's clickbaity, and it would get 1 million views. And I love for people to go and try to do that. So that's all I have to
Yeah,
say for people, who say that. It's like, that's fine. If that's the
yeah,
case.
and that's another thing is I've never made a thumbnail or a title that hasn't been about the video. I mean,
No, your
no matter
thumbnails are good.
if it's seen as clickbaity, like I still talk about that topic or I bring up that thing in the video. So it's not like I'm putting something on there and just throwing like a little 5-second segment at the end and saying, okay, I did it. So it's not that, it's not really clickbaity. It's just something to get you to click. You know what I mean?
No, and absolutely. And I think that's a good thing. And like, have you ever seen a PokeRev video where he wasn't just like, and there is a nature, a nature to the beast, so to speak, as it were.
Right.
And I think a lot of the average watchers, they would like to, believe that they would do certain things when in reality, maybe it's a little bit different when put into the situation. And that's just in life, right? In general with life sometimes. So just to sort of switch the conversation over a little bit here, though, because that was a good conversation, maybe a little bit heavier than we were intending on going in this particular interview, but I'm happy we had it. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about Pokemon and some of your favorite Pokemon, because this is something I always have to ask everyone in my interviews, but we haven't got to it yet, but it's an important one. But if you could have a favorite, or if you could have a Pokemon that would follow you around in real life and have like a partner Pokemon, I'm curious what that Pokemon would be, because usually I can pin it on with someone based on what's in their background, right? But I don't see any particular Pokemon in your background. So Alex, what's your favorite Pokemon? And is it, I guess, the Pokemon you would choose to be your partner Pokemon?
Yeah, I think it'd probably have to be Mewtwo, right?
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, think about it. You can just bounce ideas off him. He could psychological talk to you back and forth. And no, I mean, he'd always be one of my favorites. I mean, I was always so upset because, he was the absolute strongest in the show. He was basically the strongest in the games. You got him in the Unknown Dungeon. He was the strongest in the game at that point. And then the cards, every one of his cards are just so underpowered. And it always made me so mad. Like,
Rocket's Mewtwo was actually really good back in the day. Like, okay. I don't know if you were back. So as a player, Rocket's Mewtwo was the first one that felt pretty good. But yes, okay. I agree.
Yes, that's basically like why. But I've always loved Mewtwo. I always loved the episodes, like where he fought Gary's, Arcanine and Nidoking at the same time, and then obviously the movie. But I think favorite Pokemon in general. Like if I had to pick a 6 Pokemon team, just from Gen 1, I mean, I don't want to bring every generation into it, but like my Gen 1 team would probably be like Mewtwo. And I always start out with Squirtle, so it'd be Blastoise. I have a real big thing for Nidoking. So I know it's a little weird one, but I always love Nidoking. I always love how he could like have all the different attacks and just how he was just, I just like Nidoking.
He's a speedrun king. That guy, he's a speedrun champion. Nidoking is.
Yeah.
He's the one you use. If you're speedrunning the game, you get a Nidoking, you're good. You're good to go.
Yeah, and then like other than that, it'd probably be like Gyarados, Arcanine, and then round it all off. Last one, I don't know. Maybe throw like a Snorlax in there or something. Something like that. A big power puncher. But so like that gives you an idea of like kind of the Pokemon I like to go after, my mindset on things.
Yeah, and so you're primarily a Gen 1 Kanto lover. I'm sure you love Johto like the rest of us Gen 1ers do. But that makes sense. So then you're in your early 30s, I would imagine, based on that demographic. And so that's where a lot of us Pokemon collectors, I'm also in my early 30s. I would probably consider Kanto and Johto to be my 2 favorites as well. So we're on the same there. I guess as far as like a collector or a collection is concerned, what type of a collector do you consider yourself to be? Do you consider yourself to be more of like, some people would say they're like a player first. Like I had Echo-based collectibles on the channel here, and he would definitely, I would say he's a player and a collector. But some people strictly don't play the game. They only invest in it just for monetary gains. And I think that maybe there's a perception that maybe that's what a lot of investment channels do, but they're more reality. They're actually collectors. So what would you consider yourself to be? Would you consider yourself to be more of a collector, a player, an investor? Or I guess what would the breakdown be for you if you had to say any of that?
Yeah, so I mean, a player, not really. I actually have the idea to like make a Gen 1 deck and just like see if it, try to get people to play just like the old style, the old cards. But I've never been much of a player except for, kind of around the neighborhood or school with my friends or, the card shop back in the day, but nothing like serious. As far as collectors, so when I got back in Pokemon, everything I collected, okay, I was basically a sealed collector and a set or card collector. I never was a huge PSA slab collector. I had a lot of PSA slabs because I saw the investment potential in them because I saw how intense people wanted to get those PSA 10s for, and so I had a huge amount of PSA 10s that I kept as an investment. I made a good amount of returns on during the boom, but they just never really. I'm not really too worried about what other people, how other people grade a card and say it's a 10 or a 9 or whatever. I just like the card in general, as long as it's not beat up, doesn't have scratches, bends, kind of whitening, like looks good in a binder. That's what I like. So I'm a big set collector. I try to, get all the old WotC sets. Back in the day, I had tons of sealed collections. So I had like base set jungle, fossil, all 3 artwork blisters. I had all the theme decks from, base set starter deck all the way through Gym Challenge. So I had all those displayed. I was trying to get all the WotC booster boxes. I never made it past. I made it past Gym Challenge. I had a couple random Neo boxes, but I never made like the full collection. And then I had like a huge booster pack collection. Like of all the booster packs, I had every base set booster pack. So I had I had first edition. All 3 artworks. I had Shadowless. I had the Black Triangle. I had the UK version. I had the unlimited version. I had the Shadowless long and short crimp. So I had like all the different, I had all the different variations of all the packs. So I was a pretty big sealed collector. And so that's what I would say is my biggest thing. I still love sealed. I still love, the cards and the artworks in general. I'm just not a huge lover of PSA and CGC. Like I understand the value. I understand having that kind of certification behind it. So it isn't an official card. It's not fake. It is, this level of grade and all that. But for me, it just doesn't do it for me. I don't need a bunch of PSA cards on my shelves. For others, I know it does. And that's great. No problem. Props to you for getting the cards. I have nothing against it. I know a lot of people think I am against it from, my views on investments on my channel. But as far as collecting, I think you should collect everything you want. I mean, like I have, I have Game Boy games with strategy guides, and they're not even sealed. They're just complete in box, just for display purposes, because I like it. So it's not always about value or investment purposes. I mean, those haven't moved in value in probably the past 5 years. So I definitely understand all the investing, but for me, it's really just been sealed and sets cards and things like that.
You're telling me that this marble set is not going to triple in value next year? This marble set that hasn't moved in like 30 years is not going to triple next year?
I'd love to have that though.
Yeah. I actually collect the marbles. I have a ton of those sealed. They're some of my favorite collectibles.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love all that old stuff from the 90s and early 2000s, like all that old packaging, and it's just so nostalgic. And I think that's the biggest thing I love in the collecting is just nostalgia. So that's the other thing that I don't get into is all this super ultra god tier rarity, like the trophies, Japanese exclusives, all that. It just doesn't have any meaning to me. Like I understand the chase. I understand people want the rarest and the most scarce cards out there. It's just for me, when I look at those cards, they don't bring back any memories or joy. They're just, expensive cards that have cool artwork on them. Where like, a base set Nidoking, has very little value, if it's not in a high grade, but it still brings back so many more memories and I guess appeal to me than those do. So that's where my mindset's with everything. So, I mean, for better or worse, a lot of people have different mindsets. That's me.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, to be completely open, I also am a sealed collector, and I also do not collect PSA slabs because I believe that they're overvalued by the market, and I think that I collect PSA 1 slabs. I'm famously a PSA 1 collector. And so I collect them for memes because I do not value PSA's grading. And so I collect ones because a 1 can be anything from a 1 to a 7. I've seen ones that could get 7s. And I have a 1 that I would say could probably get about a 5, a Dark Charizard hollow one that could probably regrade a 5. But it's more like I collect them because of I don't respect the grading companies and how arbitrary they are. So yes, full disclosure, I think we see eye to eye on that. And so like I'm never out here sort of like pumping PSA 10 or PSA populations or whatever, because for myself as a collector, it's not something that I personally value. Now, like you said, I understand people are into that chase and the whole rarity thing and scarcity thing and population control. That all matters, but it's just not something that matters to everyone, right? So I think that leads to an interesting conversation, though, because with all of that sort of PSA, like population control, scarcity versus like the printed to oblivion that you see with like modern, I think you do see a little bit of a divide that sort of grows there, and that might be where some of the wedge is sort of driven. Is like there is like this huge difference between like this old stuff and like this modern stuff, but I don't think there needs to be as much of a difference. I feel like Pokemon without modern, vintage would, I think, stop being what it is, and without vintage, modern would also likely not be what it is. So I think that they are actually intertwined more so than people are willing to really want to admit. Now I'm having some internet. Hold just a moment. Let me check my.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm having some internet issues here.
That's okay.
Okay, I think it's gotten back. I think we're back here. So sorry about that if it got a little choppy for anyone listening there. I just got a notification. Okay. So
before you jump into that next subject on PSA, I want to touch on just. Go ahead.
Oh no, I didn't. I think it just chopped up. It got my internet connection a little bit.
Okay, yeah. So just to jump in, like for PSA, for anyone out there who really loves PSA cards and wants to collect them and is collecting them, I would say, at some point, I want you to, have cards that are raw and make your own submission. Okay. At some point, if you want to send through a middleman, whatever you want to do, but make your own submission to PSA or CGC. Okay. Get like I do, get a bright light or magnifying light out, look at those cards, pre-grade them, look at each card. Okay. And make, write them down, make notes on what you believe those cards should grade, send them in, and then see what those grades come back as. I promise your mind will be blown. I mean, I consider myself a pretty good, pre-grader of cards, be able to see, the conditions of them. I'm very realistic. I know when it's not going to be a 9 or a 10. And I mean, I've had so many orders in the past where I've literally sent in cards where I felt they were the absolute most perfect. They could get a BGS, black label, and they come back as 7s or 8s. And I have other cards where I'm like, I'm hoping it gets like an 8 at best, and it comes back at 10. And it's so many of those things happen to me that I finally just lost faith in the system. And I know a lot of people say, well, I only buy the strong 10s, the strong 9s. And I look at them. I don't look at the grade. I just look at the card. And that's fine, for your own collection. But for value purposes, the rest of the market sees a 10. So they could be buying that high 10, that low 10. They're both going to be around the same value. And it just doesn't sit right for me, right? So I would just encourage anyone out there to send your own submission at some point and just, pre-grade the cards, see what they come back. And that might change your mind about this whole grading system in general.
Do you know how long that the average card gets looked at a PSA submission? Have you heard the statistics for it?
Is it 1 minute?
It's less than a minute. It's 30 seconds to 45 seconds per card. And I would honestly bet it's less than that. And so oftentimes people think that like people who are grading the cards,
we spend, multiple minutes going over it.
Yeah. They think that this is what's happening, that these people are going over with a fine tooth comb and they're sending it to their buddy next to their buddy grader and say, hey buddy, hey Jeff, what's it look like? This thing look like an 8, 8.5, 9. It's like, in reality, they're looking at the card at the front, they're turning it over, they're looking at the back, they're maybe looking at the front again, and they're giving it a grade. And then it goes off to whatever the next stage is. So it's a very arbitrary number that's assigned to a card, a piece of cardboard that's then encased in plastic. So that being said, everyone who's invested in PSA, who loves it, they know what it is, and that's totally fine. But like you said, I very much so agree. Anyone who sits and says that they love it and that they believe in the grades and that they think that there is a real good standard there, I would challenge them to send a good bulk submission in. It's not even multiple, just one. Only one. Now you need more than one, obviously, for a good data point, but I think it would only take one bulk submission for somebody to really to understand what grading is all about. So I would agree with that. And that's not to be said, and that's not to say that people who are into graded cards are wrong in any way. I think that if you're into that, that's totally fine. And it adds another level of enjoyment to the hobby. Like, to be honest, grading is akin to gambling. Like, a lot of the time what you're doing when you're sending cards at grade, and this isn't something people like to talk about, because a lot of time it's like the safe investment to go for like the vintage high, but like if you're sending cards to get graded, or if you're thinking about buying graded cards to regrade, you're essentially gambling. And that's not something that people like to talk about, because it's supposedly the safe investment. It's those modern stonkers that are the gamblers, not the PSA investors. But the reality is you're sending your cards and you're hoping for the 10. You can look at your card and you can say, this is a 10 all day long. You can believe it with your heart of hearts. But what you need for that to happen is the grader to get it in front of them, and they have to give it a 10. It's not a machine. There's not a regular rubric. You can't go on PSA and see what they're grading for, or like their standards, because they're proprietary to them, what they grade for. There's a certain amount of eye appeal. So it's a subjective matter. So that is something that I think is less talked about, is the gambling nature. And that's why people love it. People who love sending to PSA. I have a 50 card submission to CGC right now. I can't wait to see what the grades are coming back. It's exciting. It's fun. It's like, it's not even, it's a level of enjoyment. So like, I think that's something that people need to talk about too, is that there is a level of grading that's just fun, and that people enjoy that, and it's okay to enjoy that, So I used to be very critical of these like pop-up grading companies because I don't use them or whatever. And I would still be very critical of them as far as like if you're looking for investment purposes or value. But if you just want to get your card slabbed and you want to pay someone $5 to $10 to do it, and you put it in plastic and get a cool label to put it on it, as long as they're not going to damage your card or steal it in the process, I see nothing wrong with that. So, to each their own. But yeah, no, I'm not out here buying graded cards. I'm not out here investing in graded cards. And I do believe that they are far more risky than those who are invested in them are willing to admit.
Yes, I agree.
But that's a controversial topic. Nobody wants to talk about how PSA slabs are controversial, so we won't talk about that. I do want to talk about, though, what's next for you on your channel, because now that you're flirting with the 2,000 mark, I for some reason, I don't think you're going to stop with this anytime soon. So I'm curious, do you have any big plans or anything like that for your channel in the near future? Are you going to start doing something different, live breaks or whatever, breaking packs? Or if you are, that'd be cool. And if you watch any of the other lives, when's the big Patreon dropping, because I'm sure that $69 a month is coming anytime now, right? So
that's what I was going to say. I don't want to name any names, but I was called out pretty directly in Pokémon stream about a Patreon. And I literally mentioned this in a video. Guys, I don't know why I'm seen as like this mastermind or something that have these like big plans. I literally just started filming videos on my webcam with OBS to share the screen, or my phone in my closet. Okay, so I don't have any like super high-end equipment. I don't have any like super expertise on the internet in general and how all the things work. I didn't even have an Instagram, like a personal Instagram. I just started one for Nostalgia Nomics. I haven't really been super active. So I just learned how to live stream like a couple of weeks ago. I did one with like Northwoods and then with Ava's Binder. And so, I'm literally brand new to all this. So for anyone thinking, or even calling me out and saying I have a Patreon in the works and it's coming, I don't even know how to use Patreon. Never even logged on one. Never created an account, so I don't even know how it works. I haven't even put in any thought into what I would do on a Patreon. I mean, if I were ever to do anything though that would charge people like a paywall, it would have to be something where there was like a true tangible value to it. Sort of like how Rudy does it, where he, you can get magic product from him, at distribution level, or, you get access to like those early release or those special releases of MetaZoo now. And, he has a lot of different perks of being a part of his Patreon, more than just being able to email him. So If I ever created a paywall, it would have to be something like that, where there was some type of value you were getting other than just, more access to me or more videos, or, I'm not going to start hiding videos behind paywalls. I'm not going to become, I don't feel like you'd be getting any more from me than what you could go get from like an SM Pratt or like, Jake Pokenomics. As much as I disagree with Jake Pokemonic's views on a lot of things, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not, I'm sure he doesn't, he provides good value behind his Patreon, but I'm not going to get to that point where I start, hiding videos behind a paywall. If I created something like that, there'd have to be a true value that, a monetary value that you're getting out of it. Or it just doesn't make sense to me. But as far as YouTube in general, yeah, I'm trying to get, more, like I said, my schedule is always so busy, running these businesses. And so I'm always, it's crazy this time of year. It'll slow down a lot when it gets more of the fall, winter time. So I have a lot more time to, really dive in and kind of come up with those ideas. But for now, I'm just working on keeping the videos as frequent as possible, trying to get, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 videos out a week, and just continuously getting content on the channel and helping the channel grow. So other than that, no, I don't have any huge plans in the future. So that's basically where I'm heading.
Are you going to any big collecticons or any events or anything coming up in the future? Are you planning on it? Is there anything coming to your area that you're kind of looking at?
I'd love to go to the Kansas City one, but from what I've seen or heard, I don't think a lot of people are going, which is sad. I know a lot of people are eyeing the Charlotte one, and I just really can't fly out there. I don't think for a few days right now. So I mean, I'd like to go. I'd like to be able to drive down to the Kansas City one because it's within driving distance from me. It's only a few hours away. So I think if I think enough people are going to be there, I'd love to go and meet some people. I don't know about you if you're planning on going.
You should go regardless. I feel like even if you don't know if there's going to be a lot of people that are like outwardly going, there will be a lot of people going there. Like I went to the Leonhardt Pop Shop without really knowing a lot of people. I think I knew that there were going to be like 3 people there in the community that I was like kind of friends with, sort of. But like I still had a fantastic time not knowing anyone. I met a bunch of people there too. So like I think that you should go even if you don't think that there's going to be a lot of people going, just because there may not be people who do YouTube who are in that area. There are tons of collectors in that area. So like especially if you haven't been to one in a while, like conventions are a lot of fun, man. I think especially like for someone like you, if you do get to meet some of your fans for the first time, it adds another layer of like another fun element to it as well. You get to interact with your community a little bit more, so build those relationships. So yeah, I would encourage you to, man. It's definitely a good thing, and I know that your community and even my community would probably love to see you at some of these events. So yeah, I plan to answer your question though about what I plan to go to. I'll be going to the Long Beach one in August. I definitely, because I'm in California, and so I'm for sure going to be going to the California Collecticon. I would really like to go to the Denver Collecticon as well, because a lot of my fellow friends in the content creation like sphere and just people I know are going to the Denver one. The North Carolina one sounds really cool too, but that one's way too far for me. Like that's just across the country. I drove to Texas for the Leonhardt thing. My girlfriend and I took a road trip and drove there. Because it was still sort of a little dicey with traveling at that time, like as it was kind of it was okay, but it was still a little bit. So we just decided to take a road trip, and that was fun. But realistically, I can't do that more than once a year, really, So I'll probably, for sure, for anyone who's listening who's wondering where I'll for sure be at the Long Beach Collecticon. I think it's in August, in the summer, and I would like to go to the Denver one, but that's sort of up in the air. But yeah, I've got some stuff that I would like to work in as far as like more public events, especially now that things are kind of going back and we're able to kind of have these bigger gatherings and go back to normal. I would definitely like to interact a little bit more that way with the community, because like I interact with my community online constantly. Like I'm a live streamer, so that's all I do is interact. But like I feel like it's different interacting in person.
Oh yeah, I'm excited about it. I definitely want to start going to more events and getting more live in person.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've really done a good job at sort of hitting most of the questions that I wanted to today. But I do want to spend a couple minutes, if you were down, to talk a little bit about the market here, because I
Yeah.
do think that right now, especially with you being like a market channel, sort of someone who's talks a lot about investing in Pokemon, those types of things, I think that right now is a really interesting time for the market. I've just been sort of foaming at the mouth to want to talk to someone about it. So I don't know how you feel about maybe having a little market chat here at the end, but I would love to sit and talk for a few minutes about what's going on in this current
Yeah.
atmosphere of what May the 4th. May the 4th be with all of you. There we go. May the 4th here. So anyone who's watching, may the 4th be with you.
And
But yeah,
also with you.
yes. And what have you been seeing lately? So if you got a couple minutes, what would you say you've been seeing in the market lately? First and foremost, are you a seller, a net seller, or more of a net buyer? Like, do you find yourself buying and selling, or doing a little more of one or the other? I'm curious, and I guess it's good for the interview too. What do you find yourself doing more of?
So I just got word last month that I lost my top rated seller on eBay, if that tells you anything.
So you've been buying
um,
lately, but you're a big seller though, so you sell a lot then.
yeah, I mean, I'm 100% feedback. I haven't had any sales or volume. So like I said, when I was back during kind of before the big boom, kind of after 2016 all the way till 2019, 2020 time. Yeah, really active. Constantly, I guess, doing the things a lot of people were doing: buying collections, buying lots, breaking them down, keeping the mint ones to grade, repackaging the others, selling them individually or whatever, flip profits, things like that. And constantly buying and selling. So tons of buying and selling back then. And then after the big boom and selling out, like I said, I stepped away for a good year or so. Didn't do anything. But I had all those sales of all my collection, like not all of it. Some of it I sold to Troll and Toad privately and some other people privately. But I had a lot of sales on eBay, so I kept it going. And I haven't sold in a good amount of time. I have no listings on my page right now. I am going to be starting to sell again. I've got some of my PSA orders I sent in back. I'm on the list. Obviously, as the sealed product, I have ages that I've been buying. I'll probably, sell some as I do, with anything I buy. With things when I invest in things. And when I say invest, I have no time limit. So it could be 3 months, it could be 3 years, it could be 10 years. But I have a goal in mind of each item I like it to get to, where I want to kind of divest from it, take my money back out of it, and keep, however many items of that for kind of long-term holdings, free or whatever. And so, one of those items probably soon, Celebrations UPCs, if they keep going through the roof like this, I probably will begin to sell some of the stock that I have. But other than that, no, I haven't been doing any selling. I'm going to be getting back to selling eventually though. But I guess I'm a net buyer at this point. What about you? I guess you're obviously a net seller.
Yeah, so I everything has a price on my channel, so to speak. That's one of the running jokes about me, is that, like, everything is for sale, but it's just depending on what the price is. If it's something I don't want to sell, I'll price it way higher than what's reasonable, and if it sells, it sells, and then it's like, fine, you paid way over market for it, but I didn't want to sell it, so there you go. So I am much more of a net seller than I am a buyer, but right now I am more of a buyer than a seller. So the market I've found has dropped, has turned it's flipped like a switch in the last 2 weeks. The market has done this, and I don't know if other people have experienced this, but I sell on a live platform 3 to 5 times a week. I sell through live sales. I run $1 auctions, and I feel the market. I feel the market. And so oftentimes when the market turns, I feel it immediately. And so I felt it 2 weeks ago. The market turned like a switch, and I don't know what that corresponded to. It may have been a little bit more than 2 weeks ago, actually. It felt like the rising gas prices and the war, it had something to do with like Pokemon markets, but it wasn't just Pokemon either. It's just all markets, crypto, stocks, literally
Yeah.
all markets have been down. So like, I will say that from my perspective, I've been buying a lot more than I've been selling. That's not to say I've completely stopped selling though, because I still do my streams, I still run modern product, but it's certainly not stonking like it was before. And I am actually quite prepared for a good 3 to 6 months of bearishness in the next near future, where I don't think we're going to see big declines, but I also don't think we're going to see big increases. In fact, I think that Astral Radiance looks like a very weak set, unfortunately. And while I will be investing in a case of Astral Radiance like I typically do for my own personal collection, I take my personal collecting goals. They are not the same as my business goals, which are obviously to make profit. My collecting goals, though, I still like to collect sealed product, and so I stash about a case of every modern product. I don't need more. I feel like a case is a lot. I know people who do more. I know people who do less, but a case is my target for every modern set. Or if it doesn't come in booster boxes, then a case of ETBs. But that's what my target is. So like after that, I pretty much don't have very much of a sealed collection. So for me, I'm not looking at the next 6 months as being a big gaining period, but I am looking at it as a good opportunity to pick up on positions of those products and not have to really worry about FOMOing into it or really worrying about the prices jumping up overnight. There were times in this hobby over the last 2 months or 2 years where I literally went to bed thinking about buying something, and the next morning it was bought out and it was tripled or quadrupled in price, and it made me, and I'm sure this wasn't just me, it was everyone else involved, get that FOMO and want to just buy everything. So now that feeling is sort of not there. I haven't got that feeling. I haven't had that in a while. And so like now that that's not there, the hobby's turned back to where I think it would be if it wasn't for all this craziness that happened. So I think that while I'm calling a bear market here, I don't think I'm calling like a bad bear market. I'm not saying it's going to be a bad thing per se. I'm just going to say it's going to be a different thing. That's what I'm kind of trying to articulate, I guess. So if that makes sense.
No, definitely. Those were fun times, weren't they? Where, I mean, I remember buying things literally, and by the time it showed up on the doorstep 4 or 5 days later, it was already up like 30% or 50%. And it just didn't even make sense at that point, but you were still buying into it. Those were fun times.
Yeah, rocket ships, everything's when everything's going to the moon and, everything's on the rocket ship emojis. It's great. It's good times. But I think the rockets, they run low on fuel sometimes. They got to come back to Earth. They got to fuel up and redock or whatever it is that rockets do. I don't know. I'm not a rocket scientist. I sell Pokemon cards, but yeah, it's definitely, I think right now, and this isn't like revolutionary, like us talking about this. I feel like everyone's talking about this now. I think actually that's one of the things that your channel is actually what's really doing well for it, is you're not like doom and glooming like a lot of us are here. So I guess that's probably a good thing, because I do think that the future of Pokemon's bright. Even though a lot of this bearishness is running around, I feel very confidently about the future of Pokemon. I mean, the new Pokemon Go set, Radiant Pokemon, right?
I'm excited about Pokemon Go. I mean, I was one of those few people that were excited about it when I heard it, because I just understand like the whole market sentiment behind Pokemon Go. I understand that back in 2016, 17, that was all the rage. That's what brought so many people back in the hobby. And even if people aren't playing it anymore, they still remember Pokemon Go, and they're still going to want a piece of that. And so after we saw the artworks, now I'm even more bullish on it. I'm thinking, wow, this thing's going to be a home run. And then I hear about there's going to be like a shiny Charizard, Blastoise, Venusaur, and you see the EV box, the Mewtwo art. It's just, I think it's going to be a home run. I just hope Pokemon has enough printed of it. That's all I'm saying.
So I will say that I know from my distribution counts, and I know a lot of people like Mason, a lot of other people have already said they're getting numbers back and things. It is a large number. So the Pokemon Go set is going to be out there. So for anyone who's watching, if you made it in like 2 hours into this stream, you get a little insider information. Do not FOMO into the Pokemon Go set. Now don't take my advice. If you want to FOMO into it and buy now because you think I'm going to be wrong, by all means. That is certainly something that I know that some people are going to do, but I don't think that's going to be happening with this particular set, just from my inside information about, like, let me put it this way. I asked my distributor when I last saw him if I needed to put in pre-orders for it. And I said, you know how much I like to order, right? Do I need to like put in pre-order numbers with you, or is there going to be enough? He said, don't you worry, bub. There's going to be plenty. So I don't even have pre-order numbers in, and I'm going to be able to order pretty much. But that's anecdotal. That's from myself. That's one person. There are many distributors for anyone who's watching, just to be, transparent. Distributors all operate independently. There are hundreds of distributors within the United States, probably even more, outside of that. I don't know how international works, but they all operate differently. So this is strictly speaking from my anecdotal experience, because I know some people are watching, they're like, oh, Old Card Shop says he's getting an unlimited amount. That means the floodgates are open. Pokemon's dead. That might be true. I don't believe that's true, but believe what you will. But from my experience and my understanding, they're printing so much of this printing, the Pokemon Go set, it's not going to be a worry, really. So,
Okay.
So I don't know. You can take that information for what you will, but that is what I've heard from down the pipeline for myself. And also for Astral Radiance, anyone who's listening, speaking of distribution numbers, that's a one and done set. We're getting one print of Astral Radiance so far. I mean, until the next reprint, until they decide to actually reprint. Now, this is going back to what the print schedule was like during the last set that had this type of print schedule is Darkness Ablaze. And so before Darkness Ablaze, you were able to go to your distributor and even order sets, not only the most recent set, but the older sets. You could go to your distributor and actually put in orders for multiple different sets and get as many as you wanted. I know it blows people's minds to hear that that's how it used to be, but that is what it seems to be that Pokemon is targeting going back to. And that is a good thing. It's not only a good thing for investors, but it's a good thing for the hobby, because it's the wave system. It was really bad. It's bad for distribution, because there's not enough product to supply when everyone's most excited about the product right when it comes out. So there's not enough product right when you need it at the bottleneck, but you do get all of the product months and months later when nobody wants it. And so the wave system was never a good system. And it was never something that I think Pokemon was intending to do forever. And we're finally seeing evidence of this being cut off. So I'm personally, as someone who buys through distribution, happy that we're finally going to get all of our wave of product on the first print. And then additional waves will be printed to demand, which is truly easier, I think, to both predict and time, and also invest in. And so, like, for anyone who is out there investing in Pokemon product, I think that you should be excited about this, because the only thing you have to worry about now is not 2-3 waves getting dumped on your door 6 months later when you don't want it and the new set's coming out and that's where your capital needs to go. It's instead, you can, if the demand is there and the set does go to $200 a booster box, Pokemon Company can go to their printers and say, hey, we don't like this set being $200 a box. It's still in standard rotation. This needs to be available. Print that shit to the ground. And so then they print it again. And that's what their model used to be. And that's a healthy model. And that means that a set that gets reprinted is a set that is in demand that needs a reprint. So therefore, this reprint, this word that I feel like, we talked about this before the stream, but the word reprint, it gets such a bad rap in this hobby. When in reality, I think reprint should be like, it should be a good thing. People should hear the word reprint and see that the company sees so much demand for a product that they're going back, they're stopping what they're doing. They are stopping the company's progress, going back, reprinting an old product, and then moving forward with their new product. That's how much they feel confident in that old product. So to me, reprint's a good thing. And I've said this a lot on my channel. I just think it's funny that people get all up in arms when they hear the word reprint. I invest in modern, and I still think that reprints are a good thing. So, I mean, so, it goes to show you where I think some people are just viewing Pokemon a little bit back in those rose-colored glasses of 2020, 2021, where, like you said, things will just go up, and you order something and it goes up, and by the time it gets to you. But I think, as you had mentioned earlier when we were talking about this too, though, it's going to be more of a selective market now, and you're really going to want to pick the good products. That being said, you said, I think I heard you one time say you invested in the ultra premium collections, correct? And you were buying them when they were about $200. like 200 to 225, right?
Yeah. So I started getting under 200 actually. And then I bought them all the way up to I think the last thing I bought was when Blowout Cards they put those cases on the market for $8.99 on Pokemon Day in like end of February. I think that was one of the last purchases I made. So they were $900 a case, which was $225. And then my prices too, when I put them in my spreadsheets, I also take out the credit card rewards too. So if I have a 2% back, I take that off of kind of my actual cost of the item. So in my books, it's going to look a little different, but yeah. So 225 minus 2% credit card fees.
So that's what I was buying them from distribution at. Just so you know.
Really?
Yes. I was actually buying them at distribution for $200 on the minute they came out up until about January, I would say. And I was selling them at about 250 to 260. It was 269 on my channel. That's what I was selling them for the longest time. And so and I was screaming at the top of my lungs at that time, if you guys want UPCs, this is going to be the time to get them. But people are like, oh, you're a scalper. You say that because you're selling them for way over value. And I was like, guys, I'm buying them for 200. I'm buying cases for 800 and then selling them to you. So if I can't even buy them at, my distribution or retail prices, people holding out to get them at retail, we're going to be holding out for a long time. And they're like, no, it's going to get printed to the ground. They're going to print that thing to oblivion. Pokemon's dead. They know they're going to print it. They know people are investing. And that's all I heard when I was sitting here screaming about it. So it's just funny to me that this isn't a more obvious thing. And I'm sure you invested in them. It was a very obvious play. And so
I got criticized multiple times. I mean, I sent out a link for it was affiliate link, so I would have got some credit for it. But I sent out the link to that listing. I'm like, look, I bought these. Yeah, I bought one of these. Here's the link. If you want to pick them out there, it's only going to be this weekend only. They're $900 a case, or it was like maybe 30 a box. And I even said it again. I made a video when they were $300. I said, look, I'm not saying this is the best investment you're ever going to make. What I'm saying is, if you're holding out, if you actually want one of these in your collection, this is probably the cheapest you're ever going to see these again. And sure enough, now we're in the high 300s, and it's just one of those things. It's like no one wants to believe it. Back then, I think a lot of people on here are just afraid. They're afraid to make a definite statement because they're afraid of being wrong. And hey, I've already said it. I'm going to be wrong eventually. I'm going to have things I get wrong, but it's not going to stop me from just speaking what I believe. And I believe those were a very good investment. I thought they were going to move well. So I said they were, I'm buying them, and that, take that for what you will. And everyone else wanted to say things like, oh, if you can't get them MSRP, don't buy them, let them get reprinted. They're not, the value inside is not worth the 200 whatever dollars. And, I just think a lot of people say that just to play the safe card, to kind of sit on the fence and not make a definitive statement. But I'm not afraid of doing that. If I see an item where I think it's a home run or I think it's a good play, I'm gonna call it out. I'm gonna let people know what I'm doing with it and just call out what I think is gonna happen. So that's what I did with that. It ended up being right. Other things might end up being wrong, but I'm not gonna let that make me afraid to call things out.
Yeah, they're gonna reprint it with the Evolutions reprint though, so no worries. It's gonna get reprinted with Evolutions. It's all right. I'm waiting.
I mean, and that's the other thing with all the reprints. It's like I wanted to touch on that. I think anyone who is really losing their minds about these reprints, it has to be people who haven't been involved in any type of market before. I mean, I guess people maybe have never been involved in the stock market. I mean, stocks over years, they lose a lot of their value, a lot of times, and they come back. I mean, the housing market, it crashed, it came back, now it's stronger than ever. It'll probably have another downturn.
I want to go out on a limb and say most people in Pokemon aren't involved in the stock market. I think a lot of our viewers probably are, because our viewers are more investment savvy, but I will go out on a limb, and I don't think I'm going to get much criticism for saying this, and say that about 90% of Pokemon collectors or people have zero money in the stock market, I bet.
What about crypto?
I actually believe that less of them have money in crypto. I believe less of them have money in crypto, because I think that the view is that everyone has money in crypto. I like crypto and I don't have money in crypto. So that, you know what I mean? So yeah. I don't know. So are you comfortable divulging if you invest in cryptocurrency?
Now I have $100 in Bitcoin.
Okay, so you don't have
I have nothing.
Yeah, so yeah. Do you like cryptocurrency? Are you a fan of it? Do you feel like it's are you confident about it in the future? Do you like it? Like, think it's coming down?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a lot like NFTs. I'm not I think most of it is going to be worthless.
Okay.
And I think there's going to be certain cryptocurrencies that are used for everyday life, sort of like how NFTs will become something like Gary Vee talks about it, if you know who that is. I mean,
yeah.
he talks about NFTs being used for everyday life. And, just, I think that's going to be true. But I think, 90% of the projects, 90% of the cryptos, they're not going to be worth anything because they're not going to have, the uses that, we need them for everyday life. So when you hear people talk about, the general public getting into crypto and using them for purchases, yeah, I think there will be a spot for it, but I don't think you're going to need, if you go on CoinMarketCap, there's, I don't know, 1,000 cryptos now. It's just outrageous, right? So, I mean, it'd be like having, 1,000 different currencies that you're trying to use to buy items. I mean, it just, at what point is it too much? But no, I mean, I think the idea behind crypto, the idea behind NFTs, all these new technologies are just going to be things that we evolve with as a society, don't you?
Yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, mostly my point is that I don't think that the vast majority of people are actually invested in it or savvy investors. And I think that's also sort of a little bit of a misconception as well, is that, the Pokemon investors in this atmosphere are like really savvy investors. And I would like to believe that's true, but I just don't think that that's the evidence that I've seen, the reality of it. That's all. So yeah, I think that's an interesting topic for sure too, though, is like, we're a young hobby, I think that we're a young hobby, or a lot of us. I mean, not all of us. Some of us are in our 20s, some of us are in our, later on in life in our 40s and 50s and 60s. And, I'm sure there's older people too, but a lot of us in our young 30s. And people in the young 30s are just getting into sort of their financial freedom sort of years. And so they're going to be finding things like investments. They're going to be purchasing a house. They're going to be looking at stocks, looking at assets and different alternative forms of investments. And that's just going to be very normal around this time of life, I believe. So, yeah. And I think Pokemon very much so appeals to that demographic. I know that my YouTube, demographics is very strictly, that range at 25 to 32-year-old male range for the most part, Yeah,
I think I checked, and I think I have a 2.4% female viewership. So I always like to shout them out and say thank you so much for for checking out a channel like mine.
Yeah, and shout out to someone like Ava's Binder, who is like young and a female in this mostly male 30-something-year-old dominated sphere, and she does such a good job with that. I think that, like, shout out to her for sure. But
she's
I would
killing
love
it, by the way. She's
absolutely
crushing it.
Like, I know she's gonna be one of our best channels for investment in the near, like, if she keeps up with it in the next year or two, she's gonna be up there for sure. Like, I'm gonna be like, man, this girl, I should have reached out to her before she blew up or something. But yeah,
that's why I did. Yeah, that's why
yeah,
I got her on the channel. I found her and I watched a few of her videos. I said, okay, she's gonna blow up. I want to have her on the channel. And I even told her that. I said, I wanted to have you on before you got big and famous, and you didn't want to come deal with a little guy like me. And so yeah, I mean, you can just tell. I mean, she's got that thing about her, and I think she's gonna continue to do really well. I mean, she's having this exponential growth.
Yeah, I mean, she's really bright, and I think her head's in the right place in a lot of these places. I'll give her a pass on liking Yu-Gi-Oh, so that we'll give her a pass on that. But yeah, I do think that we need more channels like that, so it's a refreshing to see those types of channels coming into the sphere, because we definitely need more of that. But yeah, I do think that right now, going back to the market talk a little bit though, myself speaking, I've been buying a lot, and I personally, if I was out there buying, and if I was worried about what I was buying, like, dropping more, I do think that there's a possibility for us to have not seen a floor. There's a lot of this talk about like $70 booster boxes being like the floor that people think it could get to. I think it could get lower than that. If it got really bad, even though I'm out here with a Pokemon business, and if that happened, it would be absolutely bad for me. It's a possibility, and I want to throw that possibility out there as like a thought, experiment, just because, like, It's happened. It's happened with Roaring Skies. It did happen at one point. They were sub $70. Like you could get them for 60 something bucks if you went like friends and family, PayPal, purchase it online, whatever it was. And so like there is a point where I think bearishness can dip to that like that below MSRP, below distributor price, but I don't think we're going to per se see it. But I would love to explore the possibility of that, because I think a lot of people sort of say like, oh, nope, that can't happen, that won't happen. But like, why can't that happen? And why wouldn't that happen? All it would take
I mean,
would be
I don't know about, do you remember, you were in the market, do you remember Burning Shadows ETBs were down in the mid 20s?
yes,
Do you remember that?
yes, they definitely were. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I
So
mean,
it's happened multiple times.
yeah, so like the ability that can definitely happen. Now, I don't think it would happen anytime soon per se, but here's a possibility I could see playing out. I could see Pokemon continuing doing what they're doing, printing just a ton, right? Not necessarily fixing the print run in the next year, but just keeping printing to the same level they were with Brilliant Stars, with Astral Radiance, and they're gonna do it with Pokemon Go to the 2020 levels. I could see those print levels continuing to push down the market because of all of these sellers like myself who got in and started selling modern product, right, from distribution, to the point where it gets pushed down to the point where you are selling below what you're buying it for from distribution. And then you see this exiting point more from the hobby as it slows down. Because I do think that while we did see a big drop off in the last 6 months, we haven't seen a total drop off yet. So I still feel like it's been too short of a time period for the paper hands to fold per se. You know, I think the cardboard hands folded, but the paper.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that too, because I've had another person who has a who has distribution. So I want to ask how your distribution works. They made the point that the way their distributor works is they want you to take like multiple products of every set, and if you don't, basically that hurts you for the next set. So basically, if Fusion Strike comes out and you say, yeah, I just want some booster boxes. I don't want the ETBs or the collection boxes. I don't want anything else. I just want some boosters, and I only want a couple orders. Well, then that way, when like a set like Brilliant Stars comes out, they're gonna say, yeah, sorry, we only got a couple orders for you. We're not gonna give you everything you want. So it's like it becomes that game where it's like you want to constantly make these huge orders, even if you're going to take losses on these bad sets, just so you can get the Evolving Skies and the Brilliant Stars and the celebrations. Is that what it's like with you? Or are you able to just do whatever you want?
Yeah, so that's what my point. So that's sort of the point that I'm making about a long period of bearishness that I could see sort of continuing to sort of the trend to continue because of that. So with my personal experience with distribution, I have a relationship with my distributor where I can go in person and buy product. I'm not online on an order form. I mean, I make orders through him, but it's in person. It's more personal. And so I don't have the same experience or the same relationship with my distributor that others have. But for me personally, I do take pretty much every product except for theme decks. If I wasn't dealing with the distributor like I would have to take theme decks though. He has told me multiple times that if I was an online only, I would have to take an allocation of theme decks. And that's because when he's making his orders, he has to beforehand tell Pokemon how much to order. So otherwise he's stuck with the product. So like it goes down the line for distribution. So it's not like distributors are sitting here like evil and they're wanting to sell you bad products. Distributors are ordering product to meet what these game stores are pre-ordering or telling them. Like people, like for example, I have an open communication with my distributor. When I hear about a new set come out, like for example, the Pokemon Go set, I specifically asked him, I said, hey, how much of this is coming? This is going to be a set that I think is going to be a big deal. I would like to order as much as I can. So can I put in pre-orders? And he said, hey, don't worry. I already put in orders. It's going to be as much as you need. You don't even have to worry about that, buddy. We're going to get you however much you need there. So there are situations where like you need to have that relationship with the distributor. And so if I were to say that to my distributor and then Pokemon Go comes out and I don't take like a shit ton of product like I usually do, and he's sitting there with all this stuff and he's like, hey man, you told me like you wanted a bunch of this stuff, like what's going on? Is that going to hurt my relationship with him? Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So the same ticket, like if you're sitting there making orders and you're like one of the 69,000 accounts, the 69,420 accounts that this distributor has at whatever distributor, X, Y, or Z distributor you are, if you suddenly stop ordering the same things you've been ordering, or say, hey, I want to return this, or I can't take this item, he's going to put a little flag. He's probably going to put a little check mark there. It's going to put, and he doesn't have time to remember your name and sit there and take it personal. But that little check mark is going to probably put your stack of paper over to the other side so that when allocations for the next set come out, if it's a banger set, he might see that little check mark there and say, hey, you want a lot of this set, huh? Well, where were you on the last one or the one before that? And so it's not as cut and dry as people like to believe. And it's not as like, it's not as black and white, right? So like distributors, they have to take risks, and I'm not going to sit here and just and like defend distributors because I don't know what goes into distribution. I deal with distributors, but I am not a distributor, so like I can't say what's on the back end of what they have to deal with. But I hear a lot of it, and like they have to put in orders months and months in advance for sometimes millions of dollars worth of product. So like, to think about, like for me, I have sometimes thousands of dollars worth of product that I stress about selling, before, I have to sell it. So like to have millions of dollars of product in a warehouse and then have people defaulting and saying, how I told you 3 months ago, I wanted 6 cases of that battle styles. Well, the market's turned and, it was worth it back then, but I don't want it now. So you probably don't want it, but I don't want it either. So you can keep that, okay? And I'll just take the next one. Yeah, they're not going to take kindly to that. I don't think anyone would take kindly to that. So I think that's the reality of like what working with a distributor is that you do have relationships, and like everyone's relationship's a little bit different. And like everyone, like for example, like I said, with my distributor, I have a very different relationship with my distributor. I can absolutely mess up my relationship with my distributor by telling him I'm going to take 10 cases of something and then saying, hey, instead, I kind of only want 1 case. You can kind of find the other buyers yourself. But so yeah. So it is very much so something that I'm anticipating happening because I think there were a lot of people who overextended themselves in this market, and they saw the rocket ship emojis and just wanted to grab onto the rocket, and they didn't buckle up and they just kind of grabbed on, and those people are going to fall off, and I think there's going to be opportunities for people who are actually passionate and who believe in Pokemon to potentially get back in through distribution in the near future. And so like for someone like I don't think you buy through distribution, but for someone like yourself, who I'm sure you would love to buy through distribution, and for a lot of our viewers, who are on the channel who like to watch us, we talk about investing and buying at the best price. You can typically do that. You have to go through the right, with your state laws, and you have to get your either a resale license or a business license, sometimes both, and sometimes another, whole nother license depending on what state you're in. So you'll have to check into that yourself. But you can probably start doing that in the near future because it's not as sure thing anymore. And so like it's always good, I find, to go against the grain. I don't like to do what everyone else is doing. And so it's, if everyone is saying to do one thing and you want to do something else and you can find a good reason to do that thing, sometimes go with your gut. Sometimes it's good to listen to your intent, your intuition, and things like that. Like I oftentimes, this thing right up there, that's a Urza's Saga booster box. So that's a Magic the Gathering booster box. I purchased that. That was the largest. So back in like 2018, it was right when I was getting back into collecting again. And it was like at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, like I was just getting back into card collecting again. I was kind of into Pokemon, but I was also into Magic as well. I did not want to buy that box. Like that box, I wanted it, but I didn't want to buy it. I didn't want to shell out the money to buy it. So I saved up. I ate ramen, I saved up, for 2 to 3 months. It was $3,000. That box was like $3,000 at the time. And like, that was a lot of money for me to invest in a piece of like shiny, a box of shiny cardboard that I had no intention of reselling, no intention of doing anything. I just had to throw it on my shelf. Like, why wouldn't I put that into my 401k? And I felt ashamed at that decision, but I still did it. And I did it. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't make a big deal about it, make a post about it, a brag post like, "Ooh, look what I have," because I felt like I overpaid for it at the time. So that box now, do you want to know what that box is worth now?
I don't know recently. No, I know
It's worth about $10,000 to $12,000 now.
Okay.
And
I wanted to say 10,000.
yeah, and that's easy. It's like it would sell all day for 10,000, 12,000 if I want to wait and find the right buyer and kind of wait it out a little bit. But it was at the time it wasn't a good decision, it felt like, but it feels like a good decision now. So like it's one of those things I feel like sometimes people have to listen to their gut and their intuition. And sometimes the things that like you believe in that everyone else is like they believe something else, those are sometimes the things you should listen to. At least that's what I've found in my personal experience and with life and some of my investments. At least some of my best investments are ones I was the most worried about and the most ashamed of at the time, I guess you could say.
I think that's a huge point though, is like people hear these things and they think like, oh, 3,000, I would have bought that. I would have bought a ton of those back then. If you weren't there, you weren't there. Okay. When I got back in the hobby 2015, okay, there were base set booster boxes for $800. There was a first edition base set booster box at $10,000 or best offer. It sat there. Okay. So, you say like, if I was back there, I'd have been buying up everything, but you wouldn't have. Okay. Because back then Pokemon wasn't what it was. Okay. The oldest boxes out there were 800, 400 for like a jungle, a fossil. Like the boxes were not expensive. So, especially if you had like a, average, job, or an average person like I was, middle class, to put $800 or $1,000 in just old cards you liked when you were growing up, it was crazy, right? Like that's almost like what your mortgage payment was about. And so it's like, when you started to think that way, now you look back, you're like, wait, even in 2016, you could have bought first edition, WotC boxes for under 2,000. Like, yeah, all day, anything you wanted. Fossil boxes were 1,500. Jungle was 1,800. I mean, a base set was $2,000. I mean, you could have bought any of it. There's a lot of the prices that I paid for them, but even when I was buying those boxes at those prices, it was a huge deal. I mean, you saved up. I did a bunch of flips to get the profits to afford those. And I finally got that box and put it away and thought, well, there went all my flipping profits. Now I'm back at zero. I'm setting it away in my safe now. It's gone. And to start back over from zero. And so I think that's a huge deal now when people see these prices now of like X, Y, and Sun and Moon, and you see these boxes that are going for like Flashfire, Phantom Forces, like, $2,000 or 1,800, whatever it may be. It's like, those were crazy prices back then. And now it's just more accepted. So it's easier to pay those dollar amounts because Pokemon's kind of more proven itself now. But back then I can promise you that no matter what you say, you most likely would not have been buying up everything like you think.
Yeah, and that's it. Everyone in hindsight, everyone's a genius. Everyone's got 20/20 in hindsight. So that's a funny thing. It's just like with this last year, when Shining Fates was selling for like 120, 130 bucks a boost or ETB when it first came out, and everyone was screaming, I would buy up so much of it at MSRP. It's like it's sitting at MSRP right now. It's $50 right now. You can probably go on and buy as much as you want. And these people aren't going bankrupt like they said they were. They said, I would empty my 401k if Pokemon got to X, Y, or Z price. Well, Pokemon got to X, Y, and Z price, and you still got that 401k. But it's funny. It's easy to say something when, it's already happened. It's harder to actually act on those convictions. And that's just in life, right? Oftentimes people, I feel like, they're afraid to really take the next step in life because they're worried about what would happen, right? And so they just never take that step. They never make the YouTube channel. They never do the thing. They never go and skydive or whatever the crazy thing that you say, like, oh, I'd like to do this, but you never end up doing it. Most people, unfortunately, just don't take that leap. And it's all about just, I think in life in general, is like taking yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone and trying new things, because variety is the spice of life, right? How will you know if you don't like it unless you try it? So then that's not for everything, but for the most part.
No, it's true though. I mean, it's how I felt, exactly how I felt with YouTube. I mean, you sit here, and you watch all these different channels, and you see like live streams and collaborations and all this stuff, and you're like, oh wow, everyone kind of knows each other already. Everyone's kind of got everything kind of zoned in, and they've already got their followings, and everyone's already got the YouTubers they like to watch. So what chance do I have? Or I don't know anybody. I'm not friends with anyone in this community. It looks like they're all friends. I have no way to break into this. I'm not in the in crowd. And yeah, you have all those feelings, and finally it just gets to the point where you're just like, all right, screw it. I'm gonna go for it. If it doesn't work out, I just wasted some time. It's no big deal. And so yeah, I think that goes for anything in life, because obviously that's the same thought process I had when I was getting into YouTube. So I get it.
Yeah, it's like we all have that voice in our head, and sometimes you just got to tell that voice to shut the hell up, like just shut up and then just do the thing, and that's what a lot of life is. And I hope that people can take some positive out of that too, because like we took a really roundabout way of saying that, but I do think we've really covered some good stuff here today though. So yeah, I mean, if you have anything you'd like to add, I think we could probably finish off with the interview here. I think we're at about 2.5 hours or so. It's about usually how long we like to go. But yeah, if you have any last thoughts or any sort of last things to add, I would certainly love to finish off with anything here.
All right, well, we gotta give the watch test. So anyone who made it this far, give us a use the force in the comments. We got to make sure anyone that actually made it this long in the interview is going to be called out. You're a real one if you stick with us this whole time, right?
True. And so trust me, there will be people who stick through these. I don't have a large channel, but I have a very, very dedicated channel, I want to say, of followers. So I greatly appreciate all of them, and I love all of my followers. But we're going to get a lot of people who are, I'm sure, going to say that in the chat down below, because yeah, we just really, I love having these talks, man. And I really do. I appreciate you coming on and spending your time with the channel here. I'm glad that you did come on though, because your channel has been really exploding, and exactly what I said about Ava, I believe about you. I believe you're going to be a very big YouTuber in this sphere, as long as you keep up with it. And yeah, I think you should just keep on doing you, man. And I appreciate what you're doing. I would love to sometime have you on and do like a legitimate, like a market chat sometime, because I do think we don't necessarily agree on some things with the market. And I would love to have that more of a debate sort of situation on the channel. But yeah, man, I definitely, I like what you're doing, and I can definitely see a lot of success in your future. And I want to say, keep on at it, man. Keep doing it, because you're doing well. So,
we'll do it. And we can always do that chat on my channel too. If you want to do a live or something, we can have the, chat there too. And, whatever you feel like doing, I'm open to anything. I'm really easy. So you just reach out and let me know, and we can always set something up.
Yeah, man, it was a lot of fun. I'd love to do that. And for anyone who's still watching, make sure you like and subscribe the video here, and then go give Alex a follow as well. I'm going to link his channel down below in the comment or in the description there. I'm a live streamer. Sorry, guys. If I mix up my words, it's like whether I'm live stream or YouTube channeling, I don't know which one I'm doing. It's one of the two. But yeah, make sure you like and subscribe, guys. And thanks again for coming on, man. Appreciate you here. And yeah, stay safe.
Have a great time. Thanks a lot.